Okay, seriously, how the fuck did that rat just open that door? What's up, dorks? It's Rufus. And yes, I'm still not dead yet. Now, as an incurable nerd, I have a big old soft spot for cheesy-ass action RPGs. There's just something cathartic about obsessively building your stats and micromanaging your inventory, then turning around and using all your hard work to split some fucker's skull open with a flaming battle axe. The Elder Scrolls franchise has always been at the forefront of the genre, featuring an epic and complex fantasy storyline, a massive open world, endless dungeon crawling, and badass first-person magical murder mayhem. And while the more recent entries in the series like Morrowind, Oblivion, and Skyrim have been widely played and universally acclaimed, the earlier games have been all but forgotten in recent years. So let's take a journey back to where it all started, the very first Elder Scrolls game with by far the cheesiest box art in the entire franchise. 1994's The Elder I mean, seriously, what the fuck is that, a battle bikini? I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining, just, it can't be practical to fight in, you know? Oh yeah, The Elder Scrolls Arena. That's right, you gotta be a big-ass nerd to still be playing this shit in 2024. Fortunately for you, I am. So let's get started. Holy pixels, Batman, this really is from the 90s. So Arena, like all the later Elder Scrolls games, takes place in Tamriel, a mythical, Tolkien-esque continent that is so fucking warlike and violent that it's earned the nickname The Arena. However, when this first game starts, the Empire's been peaceful for a few hundred years under the leadership of a series of solid dudes named Septim, the current solid dude being Uriel Septim VII. Of course, this is a video game, so you know the peace ain't gonna last long. Our story starts with Uriel Septim Wait, he's the fourth now? Okay, well, the story starts with a fucking typo, which doesn't bode well. But anyway, the current emperor is meeting with his head wizard guy, Jagar Tharn, to discuss rumors of a traitor in their midst, when it turns out Jagar Tharn is the fucking traitor in their midst. He traps the emperor in another dimension, steals the royal throne for himself, murders the shit out of his apprentice Rhea Silmaine when she tries to escape to warn everyone, assumes the emperor's physical appearance so nobody'll notice, then summons a legion of demons and transforms them into evil versions of the palace guards to do his bidding. So yeah, not a nice guy. After this wonderful news, you get to create your character. First, you pick your class, which you can have the game choose for you based on your answers to a bunch of dumbass questions like, 3 kids try to steal your sweet roll, what do you do? I'm sure that'll never come up again. But this random choice method will probably give you some useless fucking class like Acrobat. Or you can just pick one. Unlike later games, you can't create your own custom class, you have to pick from one of the 18 presets. So I shall be a motherfucking battle mage, named Buckfutter. You then pick your gender and choose where you're from, which will determine your race. And holy shit, it's all here. High Rock, Hammerfell, Morrowind, Cyrodiil, Skyrim, all the locations of all of the later games started right here on this shitty little map. The different races are all just variations on human or elf, with the sole exception of the lizard-like Argonians. That's right, you can't be an orc just yet, and in this game the Khajiit aren't even cat people, just people described as cat-like, which is fucking weak sauce. Anyways, I'll go with a dark elf from Morrowind, because they deal extra damage and they look really fucking cool. You then get to fuck with your stats, which are determined by a combination of your race and random chance, but you do get some bonus points which you can apply as you please. It's all the usual RPG stuff like strength, intelligence, and luck, which determine how well your character performs in the game through a series of complex mathematical calculations that I truly don't have time to give a shit about. Finally, you get to pick your face. Hell yeah, that'll do. And then you're off.
Do not fear, for it is I, Rhea Silmaine. Listen to me. There are no others left to carry on this fight.
Man, I really hoped she was going to say Buckfutter there. So right away you get visited by the ghost of Rhea Silmaine, who apparently was your friend in life and can still communicate with you in your dreams from beyond the grave, because magic and shit. She reveals that you used to work for the Emperor, but have now been locked up in the Imperial dungeons by Jagar Tharn. Fortunately, this sneaky-ass ghost bitch has smuggled you a key to unlock your cell door, and opened a magic portal somewhere in the dungeon so you can escape. So, like almost every other Elder Scrolls game, you start imprisoned, but go ahead and grab that key, open that cell door, and welcome to your first dungeon crawl. As you can see right off the bat, this is an old school 3D action RPG where you wander around dungeons, loot shit to stick in your inventory, equip yourself with that shit, and use that shit to kill shit. If you're a magical class, you also start with a couple of basic spells, one to heal your injuries and one to shoot fireballs at shit. Every time you kill some shit, you get experience points, and after enough XP, you'll level up, which randomly increases your stats and gives you a few bonus points to distribute as well. The game has this adorably hideous UI. The color behind your character's face indicates if you've been injured, poisoned, diseased, or enchanted. The bars next to it show your health, fatigue, and magic levels, and there are big, ugly-ass buttons to draw your weapon, cast a spell, look at your map, read your quest objectives, steal something, use a magic item, check your current status, or camp out and rest. Now, often the first thing you'll hear about Arena is that it's impossibly hard at the beginning, even just to get out of the first dungeon. But I call bullshit, as long as you didn't choose a dumbass class like Burglar. See, unlike the later games, your character class severely limits your abilities in Arena. Most non-magic classes can't cast spells at all and have to rely entirely on collecting magical items. And most magical classes can only use the very weakest weapons and armor. But as long as you picked a best of both worlds class like Battle Mage, you'll be fine. Also, the game lets you rest on any raised surface, which restores your health, fatigue, and spell points. You can save anytime you want and as much as you want, and there's even an auto map you can take notes on so you remember where shit is. Not to mention that Rhea tells you exactly where the fuck to go right at the beginning. So it's not bad at all as long as you're a little careful and you've read the fucking manual. Anyway, after you've leveled up a bit, you get another dream message from Rhea, which reveals the main quest of the game. Apparently, Jagar Tharn used a MacGuffin called the Staff of Chaos to banish the Emperor, and retrieving it is the only way to set things right. But of course, that evil bastard split it into 8 pieces and scattered them throughout the land, so you're gonna have to crawl a shitload of dungeons to find all the pieces, put it back together, and defeat him once and for all. Eventually, you'll find Rhea's magic escape portal, which teleports you out of the dungeon and into your first of many, many cities. And I'm serious, there are literally fucking hundreds of these things scattered across the continent, from tiny villages to massive city-states. And unlike later games where you're limited to 1 or 2 provinces, in Arena you can go literally anywhere in Tamriel. Thank the gods for fast travel. Towns primarily serve as a place to rest and resupply between dungeon crawls. In every one, you can find inns where you can talk to your friendly local bartender to rent a room for the night to rest and heal up, or just get fucking hammered, which temporarily increases stats like willpower at the expense of stats like intelligence, which is pretty accurate. There are also equipment stores where an impossibly sexy blacksmith will let you buy, sell, and repair weapons and armor, as well as temples where highly caffeinated priests can heal your injuries, cure any poisons, diseases, or curses you may have received from enemies, or bless you to temporarily increase your luck, all in exchange for a healthy donation, of course. And last but not least, there are mages guilds, where you consult with dope-ass wizards to buy magical potions, items, and spells, as well as identify if any of the stuff you've looted has magical properties. But wait, there's more. You can also use the Spellmaker to create your own dope-ass magic by combining various effects like damage, heal, poison, levitate, etc., which is how I ended up with a spell that simultaneously lights up a room, levitates me up in the air, and kills everyone around me, called motherfucking Death Fart. However, most of the services in town are only available during the day. At night, everything is closed besides inns, and you'll be attacked by various monsters and thieves that roam the dark streets. But you can always kill them and loot their shit for extra cash. And if you feel like being a bit of a cunt, you can also just steal shit from NPCs by pickpocketing unsuspecting pedestrians, picking locks on houses so you can break in and loot the place, or stealing from the various merchants. Be warned, however, if you get caught, a bunch of pissed off guards will show up and try to kick your ass. But you can always just kill them and loot their shit for extra cash too. But all of that fun stuff aside, the most crucial thing to do in cities is just talk to people. You can chat to anyone you run into and get directions, or ask if they've heard any rumors, which is how you find quests. And not just the main thing about the staff. There are a fucking infinite amount of randomly generated side quests you can take, usually initiated by meeting some shady character in one of the local bars, or at higher levels, visiting the palace of the local ruler to take a royal quest with bigger risks and bigger rewards. These missions always involve either escorting a person or item from point A to point B in the overworld, or getting a random dungeon marked on your map and raiding it to kill a monster, rescue someone, find a rare artifact, or, in this case, catch a criminal. And they all serve as a way to collect loot, level up your character, and earn more money to buy cool shit. But at the end of the day, your main goal is still to find the 8 pieces of that goddamn staff, one of which is hidden in each of the 8 outer provinces of Tamriel. Finding each piece first requires finding somebody who knows where it is, crawling one big-ass dungeon to find an artifact they want, bringing it back in exchange for them revealing the location of the staff piece on your map, then crawling a second, even bigger-ass dungeon to actually retrieve it. These main quest dungeons are much more challenging and complex than the random generic ones you find on side quests. Each has its own cool backstory as to how it came to be an evil dungeon full of monsters, and their maps are a lot more varied and interesting since, unlike the countless randomly generated dungeons, these were actually mapped by hand, so they could pay a lot more attention to the layout and visuals. It's not all just damp stone crypts. There's a frozen ice fortress, a tower made of crystal, mines full of hot lava, and even a couple of spooky forests. They feature nifty shit like dungeon-specific lore you learn as you explore, special keys you have to hunt down to open certain doors, twisting subfloor tunnels, raised duct-like passageways, magically floating platforms, secret hidden shortcuts, and doors that can only be unlocked by answering annoying-ass riddles, some of which are booby-trapped and release hordes of monsters if you fuck up. Speaking of which, these dungeons are chock full of all kinds of deadly critters. Wolves, trolls, ghosts, demons, skeletons, giant spiders, rock monsters, zombies, vampires, minotaurs, magical robots, big titty medusas, you name it. Hell, in one dungeon there's even a zoo explaining what all the monsters are. If they kill you, Jagar Tharn turns you into an undead slave to serve him forever.
You were a fool to confront me, and now have paid the ultimate price.
So, don't die. Fortunately, there are a ton of weapons at your disposal to fight back. Swords, battle axes, maces, warhammers, bows and arrows, all that good shit, as well as various kinds of armor. And all of the above are available in a variety of materials of different strengths, including cameos from mithril and adamantium to please all the nerds. The weapons do wear down and eventually break, but your local hunky greased up blacksmith can always fix them for you. Magic is also crucial for exploring the dungeons, and it goes far beyond just attacking, shielding, and healing. You can do shit like light up dark rooms, levitate across hot lava, freeze enemies in place, reflect their magic attacks back at them, open locked doors without a key, and even destroy walls if you just want to get from point A to point B without crawling the whole fucking place. Plus, the buttons to use a magic item or cast a spell pause the gameplay, so it gives you a second to think about your next move. Once you've found a staff piece, you can nope the fuck back to the overworld and get some rest, where you'll get another dream message from Maria hinting at the location of the next piece, as well as a pissed off psychic voicemail from Jagar.
I do not know who you are, but you have made a fatal mistake.
Followed by an attack from a gang of his minions, and yes, he'll do this every fucking time, so get used to it. So, in summary, the game is essentially a cycle of raiding the fuck out of a dungeon, returning to town to rest and restock your supplies, asking around to find the next quest, then raiding the fuck out of another dungeon. No spoilers, but if you complete the 18 main quest dungeons, you win the game. The Elder Scrolls Arena was created by Bethesda, now known for developing, the rest of the Elder Scrolls series, as well as successfully resurrecting the Fallout franchise, also for publishing everything id Software has made for the last decade or so. But back in the early 90s, they were a small, up-and-coming game studio from, where else, Bethesda, Maryland. Mostly known for sports games like Wayne Gretzky Hockey and movie cash-ins like The Terminator. But they were also fans of old-school tabletop role-playing games like Dungeons & Dragons, and wanted to bring that gameplay to life in real-time 3D, kinda like Ultima Underworld had done, except not taking place entirely in fucking dungeons. Now, their original concept included the whole big-ass open world thing, but instead of being a lone traveler, you would play a team of fighters battling through the kingdom's various arenas to become grand champions, only bothering with dungeon crawly side quests to gain stats. But during development, the Bethesda team quickly realized that the open world exploration and side quests were way more fun than the arena combat shit, and they dropped that idea entirely. Unfortunately, they'd already committed to the fucking title and box art, so they quickly made up that thing about Tamriel being nicknamed the arena. Bit of a shaky start for a legendary franchise, huh? Anyways, Arena dropped in March 1994, and honestly didn't make much of a splash at first. But as more and more basement-dwelling nerds got their hands on it, it quickly gained a huge cult following, eventually leading to the Elder Scrolls becoming a massively successful game franchise and Bethesda an industry juggernaut. But what was so compelling about this game? Well, first of all, it's fucking huge, which is really what blew gamers' minds at the time. There are so many goddamn cities and towns to visit, each with their own unique street grid, not to mention hundreds of dungeons to crawl. Hell, there are so many locations they had to include a fucking search function on the world map. And if you feel like taking a stroll in nature, you can just walk the fuck out of the city gates and into the wilderness of Tamriel to go explore the landscape. And it's not just endless trees, there are houses, farms, mini villages, and random dungeons to find out there as well. In fact, Arena still technically holds the title of the largest game in the Elder Scrolls franchise, with something fucking ridiculous like 5 million square miles of world map. Now the catch is, most of this is procedurally generated. Not randomly generated, so places don't change every time you visit, but rather everything is pieced together out of preset building blocks using algorithms. None of the locations are actually mapped by hand, with the exception of the main quest dungeons. But they try to keep things interesting with nice little touches like the architecture and foliage differing by what region you're in, holidays on certain days of the year where you get perks like free beer, and weather effects like snow, fog, and thunderstorms, which change based on where you are and what season it is, resulting in some pretty impressive scenery for something this low tech. My point is, this game was seriously ambitious in its scope, and the fact that they fit this whole thing on fucking floppy disks is worth an award in itself. Also, I appreciate the amount of freedom Arena gives the gamer. Not interested in being a hero? Then fuck the main storyline. Jagar Tharn and his big magic dick stick be damned. You can choose to be a psychopathic criminal roaming around the countryside, shanking random motherfuckers and breaking into houses to steal shit. Or be a rogue warrior, doing endless side quests to make money, pissing it all away getting wasted in bars, and engaging in random street fights. There's no ticking clock, zero punishment for not saving Tamriel, and lots of random shit to do, so play the game however you fucking want. This idea is foundational to the Elder Scrolls franchise, and it all started right here. Also, the fundamental gameplay is pretty fun. Assuming, of course, you're a big old nerd like me who enjoys meticulously exploring every last inch of labyrinthine maps to find hidden treasure and slowly building up a dope-ass inventory, preferably with a shitload of murder on the side. The gameplay sure as hell isn't perfect. For one thing, magic is ridiculously overpowered, practically cheating at higher levels. So if you pick a wizardy character and learn to abuse the spellmaker, the game becomes too easy. But in terms of Bethesda's fundamental goal to take a turn-based fantasy RPG and present it in a real-time first-person environment, I'd say they succeeded. It's a generally satisfying, dungeon-crawly, hack-and-slashy, monster-explodey good time. And while I know it has its many haters, I thought the music in this game was actually pretty cool. It was created by Eric Heberling, who composed the soundtracks to dozens of games in the 90s for a bunch of different studios. It's all low-tech MIDI stuff, but I was impressed with the epic cinematic vibe of the main theme song. As well as the subdued spookiness of the dungeon soundtracks. And a specific tip of the hat for the music that plays when it's snowing. Total Zelda vibes. But there's also a fucking lot wrong with Arena. Starting with the graphics, which are dog shit. And I'm not just talking about the crappy resolution or the piss poor draw distance. I totally accept that these were just technical limitations of the time. Besides, there's a mod out there to increase the draw distance, so no problem there. I'm talking about the sprites for the NPCs and monsters. I don't mean to shit on the Bethesda artists at the time, I'm sure they were doing their best. But goddamn does every character in the game look like it was drawn by a 12-year-old. Like how all the women are exclusively hot chicks with big boobs. Especially the Medusas, oh my. And all the animation sucks too, like why is this sex worker having a seizure? Even the environment textures in general are pretty ugly, like I despise this water animation for some reason. Fucking look at it, ugh. Now there are some neat little graphical touches to be found, like how puddles of water reflect the environment around them, but then there's shit like walking up and down stairs which looks terrible. You walk straight into a two-dimensional drawing of a staircase and get instantly dumped into the next floor, which is jarring as fuck. And the worst thing of all is the goddamn frame rate. Clearly Arena was pushing the boundaries of what computers could even render at the time, so I get it, but you'll be wandering around at a fair pace in an indoor location, then walk outside and it's fucking Chug City. Of course, I'm playing this on a modern computer, so I can just increase the CPU speed way past what was possible in 94, but that's when you realize that the speed of time in the game itself is directly tied to the CPU. Sure, I'm getting 70 frames per second, but now everybody, including me, is sprinting around like a fucking nutcase. After a bit of fiddling with the speed, you can get it to a relatively playable frame rate without every monster insta-killing you, but you still have to adjust it every time you walk inside or outside. And I'm sorry, that's just bad programming. Also, the controls are a goddamn nightmare. Probably due to the heavy influence of Ultima Underworld, Bethesda designed this game to be entirely playable with only a mouse. Left-click and drag around the screen to move, right-click and drag around the screen to swing your weapon, and click the big ugly-ass buttons to do everything else. Hell, I was having flashbacks to System Shock. But, unlike System Shock, they don't give you the option to ditch the mouse and just use your keyboard. You have to left-click things to interact with them, and you have to use the right mouse button to swing your weapon. The best way to play Arena is with both, using the mouse to interact with shit and the keyboard to move around. But they made the arrow keys the movement keys, then scattered the action buttons all over the fucking keyboard, so you're constantly shifting your hand back and forth while playing, and it's seriously the dumbest fucking thing. Now there is a mod out there which remaps the keys so they're all clustered on the left side like a modern game, which is way better, but it only helps so much. You still have to right-click and drag your mouse around to swing your weapon, a mechanic that sounds like it could actually be cool, but in practice is awkward and annoying as shit. There's also no way to do a quick 180, so monsters are constantly sneaking up behind you and getting in cheap shots before you can turn around. You can jump across gaps, which is honestly pretty great for a time when a jump button in a 3D game was a luxury, but on the flip side, swimming sucks ass. First of all, there's this super awkward pause when you jump into the water because the special swimming music has to load. You can't actually go underwater, just slowly bob around on the surface wasting your stamina, and you can't use your weapon while swimming, so bad guys can just stand in your way and prevent you from climbing out of the water, which is endlessly frustrating. So if you're lucky enough to find a boat, seriously, just take the fucking boat. Also, Arena gets really repetitive and boring. As impressive as its scale is, they didn't really have the disk space to add a ton of variety. No matter where you go, it's always the same sexy blacksmith, the same porky bartender, the same goofy wizard, the same ADHD monk, and the same Caucasian-ass royalty, even in regions where the civilians aren't white. Though I guess, historically, that does check out. You'll frequently spot a bunch of identical NPCs doing the same thing at the same time, and even the random people on the street look pretty much the same in every city, only differing by hair and skin color. Like, this guy is supposed to be an Argonian lizard man, and they're conversations, while randomly generated, only have so many variations, so they get old quick, which sucks because the only way to find your way around is by asking questions like, where's the Mages Guild? To which you'll get an answer like, west of here. So you walk west for a while and hope you spot it amongst a bunch of identical buildings, and when you invariably can't find the goddamn Mages Guild, you ask another clone who'll say, oh, just kidding, that shit's south of here. Fuck. If you're close enough to your destination, they will just mark it on your map, but still, who thought this process would be fun? Also, half the time when you arrive in a new city, it's nighttime, when there's nothing to do except for fight monsters or break into houses. So if you want to use any of the services in town, you have to sleep till dawn. But can you just camp out anywhere? No. You have to wander around in the dark until you find an inn, go through the process of buying or sneaking into a room, then camp out till dawn, and boy does that get fucking old. The dungeons get pretty samey after a while too. While the hand-built main quest dungeons do have some pretty cool set pieces, even they feel stale after a while because the designers only had so many textures to work with and everything's just made out of cubes, Wolfenstein 3D style. And if you get bored and want to fast travel out of a dungeon, joke's on you, dumbass. You gotta walk your ass all the way back to the entrance, past a bunch of shit you already explored. Even the wilderness gets repetitive because there's only so many pre-built elements for it to generate a landscape from, so you'll eventually find yourself passing the same stuff over and over. Which honestly is the least of your concerns, because there's absolutely no practical reason to go outside of the cities anyway. You can't actually walk from town to town, the landscape just keeps regenerating infinitely, and you don't need to explore any of it to win the game, or really even bother with any of the random side quests. You can totally beat Arena, as I did the first time, by just running the 18 main quest dungeons and literally nothing else. Unless, of course, you've chosen to go rogue and just fuck around and explore, but man, that's gonna get old real quick due to all the shit I just mentioned, which kinda ruins the appeal of the complete freedom angle. And remember when I said people hate the music in this game? That's not necessarily because it's bad, quite the opposite in fact. It's because there's only a handful of songs to choose from, so you'll be hearing them over and over and over again. Man, are you gonna get sick of this walking around the city in the daytime track. And I think I have actual PTSD from the jaunty medieval music that plays in the bars. Make it stop. And finally, Arena is incredibly buggy, because it is, after all, a Bethesda product. The bugs range in severity from weird glitchy sprites to the entire game freezing and crashing for no fucking reason. These are well documented, and there's far too many for me to list here, but I'll tell you a few of my favorites. Let's say you decide to try to walk from one town to another. You can't, don't try it, but I did. Well, if you wander too deep into the wilderness and save your game, the next time you load, you will find yourself in the Glitchlands, where all of the game's graphics get completely fucking scrambled, as if our intrepid hero Buckfutter just took a shitload of acid. Another fun bug happens if you use magic to create a wall in a place where there is no floor. Instead of a wall appearing, then falling the fuck down like it should, a block of 4 doors will show up and just hover in midair. Enter one of the mysterious doors, and bang! You find yourself in an entirely new random dungeon that you apparently just conjured out of thin air. But the most annoying glitch in the game has to do with the sound. A ton of the sound effects in Arena start with this insanely loud clicking noise. And this isn't a technical restraint of the time, things weren't just clickier in the 90s. The sound effects for this game were truly just badly made. Fortunately, there's a mod that removes the clicks, which I highly recommend, but note that this is the 3rd goddamn time I've mentioned needing a mod to make this game playable. I'm starting to think this was just kind of a shitty product. But alas, despite its many issues, there is a charm to this game that I just can't deny, and I have to give props to Bethesda for attempting something this ambitious back in '94. So I'm giving Arena 6 epileptic hookers out of 10. Most fans of the series would be better off just sticking to the later titles, but the real die-hard RPG nerds should have a pretty fun time with this one. So The Elder Scrolls Arena was originally released on floppy disk. Fucking 8 of them. It was also released on CD with additional cutscenes and voice acting, but both of these are for old-ass DOS PCs, and Arena has sadly never been given a remaster or source port to update it for modern systems. There is a really promising project out there called TES Arena that aims to do just that, but it's still in the early stages of development and isn't actually playable yet, so for now it's the old-school DOS version or nothing. Fortunately, back in 2004, Bethesda decided to release the game to the public for free to celebrate its 10th anniversary. So it's currently available for $0 pretty much anywhere. Steam, Good Old Games, hell, it's in the fucking Microsoft Store. These versions all come pre-configured with DOSBox, so they'll work on any modern Windows computer. With a little extra fucking around, you can also use DOSBox on Mac or Linux, and through the magic of RetroArch, you can also run it on Android, iOS, Switch, or Xbox. As usual, it's just the PlayStation people who are shit out of luck. So, if you like action RPGs and aren't allergic to chonky pixels, download Arena for free and unleash your own death fart on the monsters of Tamriel, or the innocent bystanders of Tamriel if that's your kink. Either way, links in the description. Seriously, you've had enough coffee. You want like a jacket or something? Can I get a discount?